Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hi, Robert. How are you? I'm so glad you're here with us today. Robert is the host of the Shut Up and Grind podcast, and I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. And so who I am, so when I do my show, I always tell people to just strip away all of the titles and the labels, and whatever's left, that's who you are. So for me, at my core, I'm a competitor. It's like everything I do is just about competition. And that stems from being the youngest of 7 kids. And so we were all athletes. My parents were always active. But just being the youngest, you got to watch the oldest get success and, get awards and trophies, medals, ribbons. And I was just short, skinny, I didn't hit my growth spurt till in between sophomore and junior year in high school. So I was just watching them get all these accolades, and it just fueled me. And I just wanted to get out from under the shadow of being so-and-so's little brother. So that's what fueled my competitive spirit.
That is so cool. It's interesting to hear about that. I've been looking at your podcast and at what you do, and I have so many questions around that. And you've already opened the door there. And I especially appreciate what you said about stripping the titles away, because it's really about who we are at our core. And here at Unleashed and Unstoppable, we're all about having you become unleashed and unstoppable. We use the neuroscience to do that. And we talk a lot about getting to the essence of who you are, knowing who you are and your identity, because it's so important if you want to have a foundation for success and for reprogramming your mind for success. And I can only imagine the things that you're familiar with in terms of the thoughts and the emotions, the beliefs that go around being an athlete. What kind of sports were you involved with?
Oh boy, almost all of them that were available at that time. So it was track and field, it was basketball. I played volleyball, baseball, soccer, but track and field was my main sport. I'd say my favorite sport to play is basketball, but my main sport is track and field. Because there it's just me. With the other sports, it's like you can drop 30 points in basketball and lose by 20, just because it's a team sport. But in track and field, it's just me, even though technically you're on a team. But when it comes down to the individual events, it's just everyone for themselves, and the best person is going to come out on top.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, that the idea of doing something on your own, there's so much value in that. But for the high achievers that my partner and I work with, and the way we are, we tend to want to lone wolf it all the time. And there's real value to that support and community. And so what kind of community do you have around you right now?
So I started off as a restaurant manager. And I did that for 20 years, but I knew at my core, I wanted to be a speaker. I knew that at a young age, just from watching TV, watching the news anchors back when they actually gave us the news. But I used to watch them and be like, I can do that. I want to be on TV. And so I fell into managing restaurants for a while, but not even realizing that even doing that, I was still honing in my skills from doing team meetings, sales rallies, kitchen demonstrations, things of that nature. I was constantly getting in front of people and speaking. So from there, like I wanted to get back to my athletic roots. So I converted my garage into a gym. And it was more so just a positive outlet for me because I'm a parent of 5 kids. And they were all,
Congratulations.
thank you. And they were all really young then. So anyone that's ever worked in a restaurant knows that the hours are brutal. You know, you're working nights, you're working weekends. You know, if people call out sick, you got to stay over.
I have a restaurant. I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So like it can be very, very brutal, especially when
Yeah.
you have little kids. So the gym was initially just supposed to be an outlet for me, just because I was starting to bring my baggage home. And then it just blossomed, and I ended up opening up a 5,000 square foot facility. And I didn't want to just be another gym. And so, like, this is where the shut up and grind concept stemmed from. It was initially born from my father, just from watching him in his garage. Like, he was an engineer, he was constantly building stuff. And if he wanted to accomplish something, he found a way to get it done. It was like, I've never seen him give up on any job that he started, no matter what roadblocks he hit. And I wanted to bring that same mentality into the gym. And just as my clientele grew, like that became the theme. It's like people didn't come to me to just lose weight or to just build muscle. Like they came because they knew if they were dealing with something, we could use fitness as the positive outlet for them to get through whatever that obstacle is. And so then once they shut the gyms down in 2020, like I had started the podcast, but I wasn't really consistent with it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But then once they shut the gyms down, holy obstacles that everybody was going through. And so that's where Shut Up and Grind like was really born. And now I've done right after this, I'm doing my 267th episode, and it's just all about encouraging people to share their stories, like the messy parts, because it's very easy for people to share the wins. I said, but people are going to identify with the struggle. You know, if someone's struggling, they don't want to hear your $1 million BS. It's like they want to hear that, you know what, I've been there. These are the steps I took to get through it. And so I know that was a long answer, but the community I have around me is about people helping other people through sharing their stories.
That is so powerful. And that leads directly to one of the main questions I wanted to ask you was I saw that you deal with trauma. And, you know, of course, we all have trauma of some sort. And in fact, going back to hospitality, that's one of the most brutal industries in the world. And I have a hotel and restaurant and coffee bar in Southern Chile. And it really takes a lot out of you. And plus all of the other trauma and dysfunction that we gain from childhood, from our limiting beliefs. That's really where, you know, the neuroscience for me plays a part. And it's interesting to me that your podcast title is, and congratulations on the over 200 episodes, over 250 episodes. Congratulations on that. And Shut Up and Grind reminded me of a lot of hustle, the name of it. And yet you deal with trauma and with people's stories. So how did you end up tying those two together?
All right. So I had mentioned that I turned my garage into a gym. And so I decided I wanted to get back into competing in track and field. So I was 32 at the time when I first started training again. And so I was 34. I got back out onto the track. I got myself back into competition shape. And I was doing the high jump. And now I had my age bracket won already because I was in the 30 to 34 age bracket. But there was still a 45-year-old in the competition. Now, technically, we're in different age brackets, so both of us won our age bracket. But going back to how we started this, I'm a competitor. So I was like, if there's still one person out here, he's got to go. But that, you know, led into something that was really, really bad, which silver lining turned into something great because it completely shaped everything else moving forward. So as I was going to take a jump, like he had jumped and he missed. I'm like, all right, so if I just nail this one, it's over. And so I jumped and I felt a little tug in my left knee. So it wasn't enough to stop me. It's like my now ex, like she's like, you know, you don't have to jump anymore. I'm like, yes, I do. I'm like, if there's still one other person in this competition, I'm like, I need to take one more jump. So he jumps and he misses. So like, all right, let's just end it here. And so I go, and it was the perfect storm too. Like, it was beautiful weather, light breeze. People tend to crowd around the high jump, and so I'm a Leo. I love crowds, and so like everything was perfect. Like, this is a perfect walk off jump. And so I doing my approach. I plant to jump, and then I saw white, and then I was on the floor, on the ground. And then I looked down, like once I came to, because I don't know how long I blacked out for, but I definitely blacked out for a little bit. And then when I came up, my kneecap was about 4 inches up my quad. Yeah, it was rough. And so we fast forward. I'm in the emergency room. The ER doctor comes in. He takes off the brace, and without missing a beat, he's like, "Ooh, you're never gonna run or jump again." And now, mind you, I had 5 little kids. I had just gotten myself back into physical shape. And I'm thinking I won't be able to play basketball with the kids. Like, I won't be able to take them on hikes. And I just got into this really bad negative headspace, only for a split second. Because I'm a very confident person. Anyone that knows me will never say, "Oh yeah, Rob needs to work on his confidence." Yeah, that doesn't happen. So it was a split second of insanity. And then I looked at that doctor, and I'll keep it PG for your show, but I looked at the doctor and I said, "You don't bleeping know me like that." And just at that moment, I was like, "That's like, you don't get to write how my story ends." I said, "You stitch my knee back together, and I will take it from there. Myself and my physical therapist, like, we'll take it from there." And it took about maybe a solid 2.5 years before I felt really comfortable. It's like I was doing stuff prior, but I had a custom knee brace made. I started doing obstacle races. Like, I started jogging again. And just as I started getting stronger and stronger, I knew I have to get back onto the track. So I have to, because I can't complete the story unless I compete again. This happened in 2009. So I didn't get back on the track until 2016. And the high jump, like, really, I had no expectations. Like, I just wanted to just get back out there and take a jump so I could complete the story. And so this was in the transplant games in 2016. And I ended up winning the high jump. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I'm undefeated since I started competing again.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I have 16 gold medals since I was told I would never run or jump again. And
wow, Robert.
so now when people come to me and they
Yeah.
say, "I can't squat," or "I can't run," or "I can't this," and "I can't that," I'm like, "Oh, no. We're not going there."
Yeah.
And I help them overcome those mental blocks.
So that is amazing. That is exactly what we talk about here in being unleashed and unstoppable. And major congratulations, because you didn't let him write your story. And, there was a recent statistic from Harvard that 89% of people believe they cannot overcome their circumstances. And that's why I love the neuroscience work. We literally can reprogram our minds, reprogram our reality, rewrite our story. And it's not just the mind, it's the whole body. It's the nervous system, it's the heart-brain connection, it's thought plus emotion that equals belief. Where did you get this? What in your background helped you to have the kind of mindset to go, "No, you don't get to write my story," and instead you wrote your story?
Well, I'm a 3-time college dropout, right? So it's not from education. And again, I'll take it back to my dad. Just watching him build things, he'll hit a roadblock and he'll like, "All right, plan B. Plan B doesn't work. All right, plan C. Plan C doesn't work. All right, plan D." And he would just keep going until he cracked the code. Like, for a case in point, and I know my mom's upstairs. I'm not sure if she can hear this, but he came home with this smashed up station wagon, right? I'm telling you, smashed up. And we're all in the big window upstairs looking at him coming up the driveway. We're like, what is he going to do with this thing? And so he gets out of the car. He's all proud of himself. He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I scored this for $150." I'm like, "Are you sure they didn't pay you to take it?" And like, "What are you going to do with this thing?" 6 months later, I was driving it. I was driving it. Like, when I tell you, it was smashed in on the passenger side over the halfway point. And he was able, he bought this tool and he pulled it all the way out. He refinished it. He repainted it. It was unreal. but just watching that never say quit attitude. And again, being the youngest of seven, I've had all this time listening to him school my siblings, in their sports and in their training. And yeah, it was just always you just never give up no matter what. So hearing that doctor say that to me, initially it's a shock to your system. It's like, this is what this guy does for a living. But at the same token, I'm in charge of how I heal. So I was like, I'm just going to take it day by day, do what I need to do day by day. And let me tell you, the first time I ran, I remember I was at the track with my kids and I still had my big old 3-foot knee brace on. And I was like, I was walking much better. I was like, you know what? Let me just try. And I ran the length of the football field. Granted, I looked like a newborn giraffe, but I ran. And so from that moment, I was like, now I know for certain I'm going to make a full recovery.
That is amazing. And you, right there at the end, what you touched on was so key. You ran like a newborn giraffe. And we had this idea that once something's happened to us, it's never okay to fail. We have all these internal stories and negative beliefs. And one of the things we talk about a lot is this is actually your mind working properly. Your mind is working to protect that automated system, but it's what gets wired in there that gets messed up. It's the faulty wiring that tells us, no, you can't do this, or no, give up after trying 1 or 2 times. You're not able to change your circumstances. And instead, taking the situation, setting an intention, I get to write my story. I'm in charge of how I heal. Knowing that just simply by stating it and walking forward in it, totally put your brain to work for you in a powerful way. And look again at how unleashed and unstoppable this has become in your life. And what I want to know now is, will you open a gym again, or have you done this now?
So I'm not sure. So I'm transitioning into online training, and I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan, but like I said, back when I was a teen, I knew I wanted to be a speaker. So doing stuff like this, like I want to speak in colleges again, because I was starting to gain traction before 2020 hit. Because like my dad passed in 2019, and before he passed, thank you. Like I remember telling him that I'm going to go full force with the speaking thing, and I had 8 gigs lined up in the beginning of 2020, and then COVID came and wiped them all out. So I'm working on getting that back. And another thing too, like when I tell people that my dad has passed, and people always say I'm sorry, but going back to the whole gratitude thing, like when like he passed at a good time. Like it was in November of 2019. Had he survived into 2020, it would have been hell for him. So like when he took his last breath, there were 3 generations of us around him.
Wow. That's
So
powerful.
yes, absolutely. And so when I'm talking with people about navigating grief, I always say, if you can shift to a mindset of gratitude, like I was 45 when he passed. So there was a guy I had on my podcast who his dad died in Vietnam while his mom was pregnant with him. So he never knew his dad. So like how am I going to be broken up? And I had this man for 45 years, and he was at my basketball games, he was at my soccer games, he was at the track meets. He quit his job once to come to a track meet up in New Hampshire because his boss wouldn't give him the time off. So it's like, and you just think back to all of those stories that he left behind. And like I said, he was an engineer, so there's things that he built that are going to be here probably long after we're gone, because he built things like to last.
It sounds like your dad was a real leader in his life and a leader in his family, which is another thing we focus on here. And you've carried on that mantra. I really love what you said about not giving up and being persistent. And this is the interesting part about your podcast title. For me, it made me think of the hustle culture. And, there are great things about taking action, but having come from a place of myself being a victim and broken down and feeling burned out, it's really been interesting, sorry, to shift that story in my life and to I consider myself the turtle. And the reason I consider myself the turtle is not in slowness, it's in that persistence, that determination, that not giving up, because the turtle wins in the end. If the story of the hare and the turtle, the turtle wins the race. And it's what you were saying that he did, the plan A through E until it worked, until he found the solution and this legacy of leadership that he left in your life. And what does leadership look like for you today moving forward?
It's knowing what you want. So like when I have consultations with people, whether it's fitness, whether it's in creating their stories or whatever it is, it's all right. So what are you looking to do? And that's like the toughest question for people to answer. It's like, what do you want to accomplish? How do you want that to look? And people are they're just lost. And so I'll give you an example. So woman, I did personal training with her maybe a decade ago, and she reached out to me several months ago. So she lost her brother, and she wanted to talk to me about it because she knows I help people, navigate grief and trauma. And so she's actually local here in Rhode Island. So I went up to where she was. She opened up a gym because she needed to give herself an outlet. So come to find out, she found her brother dead in his apartment.
I'm so sorry. Wow.
Yeah, like I wasn't expecting all that. And so as she's telling me the story, I just helped her reframe, just like how you said reprogram. I said, so you can't change what happened. I said, so now it's about what are you going to do with that information? I said, so you started this gym as a positive outlet for you. I said, so why don't we turn this gym into a memorial for your brother? And then your niche in this industry will be helping women overcome trauma through fitness. And it just like, she was like mind blown. And she's like, oh my God. I said, that way you keep your brother's memory alive. I said, write down like 5 to 10 of his one-liners, because everybody has their one-liners. And yeah, and just put those quotes all over the wall, have pictures of you and him, the rest of the family, and said maybe you do 45 minutes of working out and spend the last 15 minutes with people sharing their story. Pick three people each session to do a deep dive into their story. I said, so now it's something bigger. And so now your brother's passing can be celebrated with every class that you do, instead of you letting that sadness consume you. Just like when I talk about my dad, I don't talk about him from a place of sadness. It's from a place of gratitude. Like, and we just talk about, like on Thanksgiving, like we spent half of Thanksgiving laughing and telling stories, instead of being sad that he's not there. Like ultimately the sadness is still there, like that never is going to go away. But we talk about the funny things he said, the times where we wanted to wring his neck, and we just tell all the different stories, because the true power in any instance is the story that you tell about it. So I just helped her reframe that into, I told her, I said, you'll never unsee what you saw, when you found him. You'll never unsee that. I said, but from that moment forward, there's nothing but power in those stories, because that situation didn't break you. And it could have sent you down a dark path, and it didn't. I said, so now use this outlet that you created to become an outlet for other women going through trauma.
Beautiful. Wow. Beautiful. This episode, I'm so thankful to have you here, because there is so much alignment in what we teach and in what you're telling people. I would love to know more about how you got into the grief side of trauma. I'm widowed, so I know we'll be talking about this in the future, but I would love to hear about how you got into that side of things. Did it occur naturally just from people's traumas, or was there something specific around that, including maybe your dad?
Well, I think it occurred naturally, because by the time Dad passed, obviously in the moment, it was awful, because like we had to end care. So it's like, we watched him pass. So, again, that's one of those things that you'll never unsee.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I was always, strong for other people. and just helping other people see, because like I'm a realist, so I knew as dad was sick, I knew there was a real possibility that he wasn't going to come back from it. Whereas like some of my siblings, they were kind of in denial that this was happening. And it's like, we like, it's happening. It's like the man's in a coma. It's like, it's happening. He just had major open heart surgery, and then they had to go in and open him up again. So once they opened him up the second time, I was like, this isn't good. So I just started mentally preparing at that moment. So like, even when we had, like, he didn't want a funeral, but he was a veteran. So we set up a gathering at the local VA. They did the gun salute for him and everything. And I guess people were just expecting me to be a mess, when I showed up. But like when I showed up, I was, hugging people and laughing. I was being strong for my mom, just because I had accepted what was, and a lot of people have a hard time accepting what happened, So when I started doing the podcast and I started getting people on who had dealt with suicide, who had dealt with losing a child, losing a parent at a young age, and just seeing all the emotions, and then again, just helping them reframe them. Like, you can always feel what you feel. There are moments even now where, like, my dad loves Smokey Robinson, where like a Smokey Robinson song will come on, and it'll make my eyes fill up, like I said, the sadness never goes away. But just as I was listening to people tell these stories, and a lot of them, they're just so caught up on the loss, but it's like, but what was left behind? Like, what was left behind that can make you smile today? What words of wisdom were given that you can utilize today? What pictures can you look at that can transform you right back to that place to live in that moment again? So there's so many ways that we can move forward once we get unstuck from the what happened.
Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. And truly those reframes, that question, what was left behind. And I love the way you lean into acceptance. For me, it was about giving myself permission to grieve, giving myself permission to feel the pain. And that is acceptance. And so it's, such a beautiful thing, a gift that you're giving people in this way. And it's incredibly important. As I tie us up here, I just really want to thank you. I feel like we could go really, really deep here. And one of the things that I love about this, though, is, again, you've talked about, you have given so many golden nuggets right here, right now, that I want to leave you guys, I want to leave you, my listener, listening to this right now, these incredible golden nuggets. I mean, talking about story, talking about intention, what you want, your identity, talking about rewriting your story, not being stuck in your circumstances and being able to reframe and not giving up, keep going until you find the solution. And, if you go back and listen, I want you to listen to this more than once and really pay attention, because these are life-giving golden nuggets. These are the golden nuggets that will help you become unleashed and unstoppable. And these are the things that bring depth and width and breadth and meaning to our lives, right?
Yes.
And to who we truly are and what's in alignment for us. And Robert, I just thank you for all of this. Are there any final words that you want to leave? And tell us where to follow you, how to get a hold of you. And do you have a program? I wanted to ask you that as well.
I do. So I have a 4-module speaker framework on my website, robertbfoster.com. And what it does is it'll help you completely dissect whatever it is that you went through. Because a lot of people will tell the surface story. And again, like, they'll tell what happened, but people want to know the how. So it's like, okay, so, you watched your father take his last breath. Now what? Like, that's the part where people are going to connect.
The meaty part. Yeah.
The meaty part. Yes. And what I want people to understand is pain, struggle is struggle, right? There's no levels to this, so the steps to move forward are the same, whether it was watching my father pass or whether it was my niece losing her 2-year-old son. So the steps to move forward from either one, they're the same. Like, you have to wake up the next day and, all right, how am I going to get through this day? Right? Doesn't matter if you're 9 months pregnant and your feet are swollen and your back hurts. There are steps you have to take every single day to get through that day. If someone close to you committed suicide, you got to wake up every day. How am I going to get through this day? So what I want people to take away from that is sharing your story matters. So that's one of the biggest things I hear when I ask people, why don't you tell your story? Oh, people won't relate to it. People won't care. My story doesn't matter. Your story matters. Like, if you worked at a corporation for 30 years and then you suddenly lose that job, you have to rediscover yourself. Just like that person has to discover life without their friend, we had to discover life without our dad. My mom had to rediscover life without her husband of 50 plus years. So everyone's story, they all intersect. So don't think that your story can't touch someone else. And I'll just share quickly, a woman I interviewed on my podcast, she dealt with systemic lupus, to the point where she was gonna hurt herself. And so she ended up turning to juicing, and through that juicing, it helped lessen the effects of the systemic lupus. So she started sharing her story. She got a spot on a local news station, and 2 weeks later, someone randomly messaged her on Facebook and said that they were this close to taking their life until they saw her segment on the news. So sharing your story literally can save someone's life.
Wow. Thank you. One of the reasons I appreciate that so much is because I myself haven't fully shared my story. And there are a couple of reasons that I think we don't share our stories. For me, I had big T trauma. And when you have that kind of trauma, you feel safe staying hidden.
Yes.
And you feel very vulnerable and exposed when you start to share about yourself. I have a rare combination of diseases, so rare. The only specialists in the world I'm aware of are in the UK and Sweden. Okay. And, to be able to start to say, who am I helping, by talking about the fact that we have the power to write our own stories. That is something that, like you said, saves lives. It really helps people to know what is possible, what they're capable of, and how they can create their reality in the future. And so I thank you for that. And so we can reach you on your website. You do have a program. Tell us, we can find you the podcast on Spotify, correct?
Spotify. Yep. Yeah. It's on all the platforms. iHeart, Apple. It's on all of them.
It's on all of them. Fantastic. Well, I thank you for being here, and I thank you for what you're doing, going for the stories and the meat of them. And you're inspiring me to continue on my own journey of opening up and sharing with people, not just sharing this simple neuroscience steps or the tips to wealth and leadership, but actually being relatable. It's so powerful. So I just want to thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I look forward to having you for a part 2 in the future and being on your show. Ciao for now.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexander Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.